17th birthday cake. It would be all black frosting, 3 layers tall, with shards of pink chocolate sticking out at the top. I was excited to be able to make this because when it comes to dyeing frosting, it can be very difficult to get your desired color. Black frosting, though, only required a couple drops of black food coloring. Or so I thought. 7 bottles of black food coloring later and 3 trips to the grocery store, and still my frosting was only steel gray. Today, I'll be demonstrating how to make a straightforward cake that looks like the stump of a birch bark tree. This cake is simple to make because instead of having to get the sides of the cake perfectly smooth, all you do is apply birch bark made out of chocolate in the final steps. So let's get started. First off, place a dollop of frosting on your cake board and spread it around just a little bit. Now, cake boards are very important to use because when it comes to cake decorating, it limits the chance of your cake cracking when you move it from your work surface to its final spot. Now, place your first layer of cake on the cake board, and using your offset spatula again, place more frosting on. And this doesn't have to be thick, only a thin layer to act as glue, and I'm not even going to bring the frosting all the way out to the outsides. Now, place your second layer of cake on. And to make all of these cakes level, I used a Wilton cake leveler. That way, when my cake is complete, it is not crooked. So now, get more frosting and place it on your next layer of cake. Again, it doesn't have to be thick. For this cake, I use store-bought cake as well as store-bought frosting for the sake of time, but typically, I use Martha Stewart's vanilla cake recipe and King Arthur Flowers buttercream frosting. So now make sure all of your cakes are centered so that way it's not crooked when it's finished. And once again, more frosting on your spatula. This time though, you want to get more frosting so that it's pretty thick on top, because this will be the last layer of frosting on the top of your cake. You don't want to be able to see the cake through the frosting. Now moving in a circular motion, push the frosting all the way out to the sides of the cake. And just go once around the outside. Now I'm going to begin frosting the sides of the cake. Getting more frosting on my spatula and placing it along the side of the cake and going in a back and forth motion, getting it all the way to the bottom of the cake and covering every part of the cake. Typically, I would do a crumb coat, which means I would put on a thin layer of frosting to lock in all the crumbs. That way my cake has no crumbs in the final layer of frosting, and my cake doesn't look speckled. But for the sake of time, I'm doing just 1 layer of frosting. Also, because the birch bark will be covering all the frosting shortly. I began cake decorating in 2015 when my mom signed my sister and I up for a Wilton basic buttercream class at our local Joann's craft store. But let me tell you, nothing that came out of that class was pleasing to the eye. It wasn't until we started watching YouTube videos that we've been able to go further with our cake decorating. And I've been able to make multiple friends' birthday cakes, as well as a couple years ago, I made a friend's wedding cake. It was 2 tiers, all white frosting with edible gold glitter all over it, and some pine cones on it for decoration. So I'm just going around my cake, smoothing it just a little bit, and I'll finish off by getting this side of the cake with all of the frosting on it. So once again, get all of this covered because we don't want any of the cake to be showing. That way there's an even layer of frosting all the way around. So using my offset spatula, once again, just cover that last little bit there, go around the top here, and go around once with your spatula, just smoothing it off a little bit, so my bark isn't crooked when I put it on shortly. And now using a Wilton cake spatula, I'm going to hold it to the side of the cake to get it smoother. So just go around once, holding it up flat against the cake, and you can see that it's coming out pretty smooth. I'm just going to go around along the bottom, and you can see the cake a little bit through there, but it's okay because once again the bark will be covering it. Now for my bark. I'm going to take my first piece and apply it to the side of the cake, and the frosting acts as glue to hold this on. So just keep going around your cake, overlapping them like this, sticking it behind there, and just keep going. To make this bark, I melted white chocolate, and then using a small offset spatula, I spread it in small sheets on a parchment-lined baking dish, and then I put it in the freezer until it was hardened. And while it was hardening, I melted dark chocolate, and using a paintbrush, I then painted on this birch bark pattern. So to make the birch bark, it needs to be thin. That way, when you go to cut your cake, it's not difficult to cut through. That's why the offset spatula comes in very handy. You can see that these are a little bit taller than the actual cake itself, and you can make this even taller than the cake. You can make it shorter to where it's pretty much the exact height of the cake. It all depends on what you like. Now for my last piece, once again, I'm just sticking it in there with that overlapping birch bark look. So now the birch bark is all on the cake, and depending on what event you were taking this to, you could put candles on it. One of my favorite things to put on cake is edible gold glitter, which you can buy on Etsy. But for today, I'll be putting on these gold mushrooms. It kind of goes with the birch bark look. So just stick them into your cake. And my last one. So there you have it, a birch bark cake in less than 7 minutes. I hope this has inspired you to go home and try your own hand at cake decorating, because it can be this simple and this quick. I also hope you try your own hand at it, because you can't eat this one. Thank you.